Welcome back, Maribeth. Very fun to have you here again. So we continued this on. We were going to call this part 2, but this might be like episode 2, episode 3. Let's see how far we can keep this going. And, you know, before we joined this right now live here, we were just saying, you know, how can we be an inspiration or not to be negative, I guess, all the time? Like, to me, I think, oh, I could share things I would do differently and things I would accentuate more in my business planning and whatnot in real estate. So let's start with you. What things would you do to inspire someone who's either new to the business, and I would say even somebody who needs like a reboot? Because in a lot of ways, I've needed reboots throughout my 25. I got my 25-year pin. Can you believe that?
Oh, geez.
This past year from the association.
Congratulations. That's a big deal.
Thank you. I don't know. Like, I can't even believe it. But, you know, what I would do differently, what I'm doing differently, even as of this past week with doing a type of mailer. So tell me what things that you could see as being an inspiration to someone. And again, I wouldn't say just somebody new to the business, but somebody that's been in the business a while too.
Well, you know, we are a blocking and tackling business. So you've got to be on the offense and on the defense. Like you've always got to be on, because relationships are what matter in our business. The way you build a successful real estate business is by knowing a lot of people. I know I'm not an introvert, although the older I get, the more me by myself time I enjoy, but that's a whole other topic. I know that there's a whole lot of podcasts out there about introverts in real estate. I am not an introvert, nor I know you're not either. The message that I would want to get out there to inspire new people or even, you know, middle age or older people getting into real estate is you've got to know people, and they have to be genuine, real relationships. They can't just be, I don't know, a bunch of business cards. I've done many things. I have experimented with a gazillion things in my career that have brought in business. But I would say the one thing that I've done, well, I've done a lot of things, but one thing that I've done consistently, and I joined this group in 2010, and now we're at 2024, almost 2025. So it's been a long time. I joined a B&I group, a business networking international group. And it is a networking group that is international, that is very sort of formulaic. So if I go to a B&I meeting in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, or, you know, Munich, Germany, or wherever in California, they're all the same. They begin and end at a certain time. You have the same agenda. But essentially, you join the group as the authority in your line of business. And the group is comprised of people who are authorities in their line of business. So in my group, we have about 35 members. I'm the realtor. We have an estate planning attorney. We have a plumber. We have a financial planner. We have a woman who does custom draperies. The list goes on. And you get to know these people because you meet weekly and you follow the same agenda. And you get to know a lot about what their business is about and what drives their business and what kind of clients they're looking for. And then when you leave, you are their sales force. So we're their boots on the ground sales force out in the field. So if somebody says to me during the course of my day, hey, you know, I just won the lottery and I have $1 million I want to invest, I could say, hey, you know, I know a great investment guy. I've known him for years. He's in my B&I group. Or, oh, you know, my sink is clogged. Well, guess what? I know a great plumber. So me being involved in my B&I group from the beginning enabled me to really go deep into relationships. And it got me to recognize how important relationships are in our business. So my hack, if you will, is find a B&I group and join it. And if there isn't a group that has an open seat, because realtor seats in B&I groups are really hard to get into, really hard, then start your own B&I group. You can do that a little bit harder. But anyway, I think being involved in something, I coined the phrase in our group, going to B&I is like going to the gym for your business. And we all know that going to the gym unless you're consistent with it and you do it over the course of a long period of time, you don't build that muscle memory. And that's what BNI has done for me. Is it's consistency in my business. It's a weekly meeting. I never miss it. I'll do anything not to miss it. I've even scheduled, family trips around my BNI meetings, but I'm there. I'm an active member. I do all the things that they ask me to do. And as a result, I've established, I would say hundreds of relationships with people over the course of the last 15 years. So for me, that would be, if there was one thing I've done for my business that's really helped me thrive, it would be BNI.
Okay, that's really impactful. One thing I would say, in addition, definitely is having relationships, right? That was actually my former podcast that I really wanted to go on, real estate, real relationships, right? So we'll again have the best of. We're going to repurpose that. Although I must say, you have to have the knowledge and the education behind you. I mean, obviously, yes, you need the relationships, but you need also to understand the markets and to know about it. You'd be amazed at how many people I'll ask. And it's not a gotcha. And don't worry, I'm not going to do a gotcha with you, but I know you know the answer. Because in Massachusetts, we have over 350 towns or cities, whatnot. And you ask a person who's been in the business forever. I mean, I'd say 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. People should know this coming out of the gate. How many single family households are in your town? How many condos are in your town? What are the stats? What's the population of your town? And, how many sales per year does your town do? And even if it's just single families or condos, just depending on the makeup of your town. And, I learned the hard way years ago when a seller asked me, and I was actually kind of brought in as the second person, the person, can you come with me to this listing presentation? And this is years and years ago.
Yep.
But you learn the hard way, right?
Yeah. All you get is one gotcha and you learn it, you know it.
Oh my God, this is such important information to have.
Right.
And I didn't have it. And you don't want to guess because then you look even more like it was just, and I don't think they meant it to be a gotcha, but it just tells you, it just is a whole thing that you really should know the data. And you should know what you're doing too. I mean, you just can't say, oh, I have like a bunch of relationships, so I'm going to be good at real estate. You actually have to have a lot of knowledge behind. And that's not just the 40 hours in Massachusetts, at least, to get your license. True. So I really feel very strongly about that. Anyway.
Nora, we grew up in a period of time where we had to go out and seek out that information and it wasn't readily available. You had to really seek it out. You had to go to your town hall. You had to, I go to my town hall and I could go at any given time to each office within our town hall. And I know somebody or many people at each office because I've had to establish relationships at our town hall. When I need, a building department question, I need to know the answer. I need to know who our building inspector is, tax assessor, education. You need to know your schools. Who's the principal of schools? Who's your superintendent? Who's your town manager? Like all those things, like it takes time to do it, but you have to do it so that you have a working knowledge of how your town operates. Nowadays, you have Chat GPT, Chat GPT, give me an overview of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. How many households are there? What's the average income? What's the population? How many, square miles is it? Like that's all information that you have right at your fingertips.
Exactly.
So, shame on you. No excuse. Right. You need it. You need to know all of those things. How about things like, we have to watch because remember, when you're in real estate, the most important thing that we have to really represent is housing for all. So the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1967, I think, is the umbrella that we work under. So we have to be fair and equitable to anybody that comes to us seeking housing. And we cannot discriminate based on so many protected classes. And it's really easy to say, well, I would never do that. I'm not a discriminatory person. But when someone asks you, and I've had this happen, hey, I see there's a demographic shift in our town, and there's X population is a percentage of our. I can't talk about that. So I have to be able to say, well, that's an interesting question that you ask, and let me give you a resource for how you can find that information. But I'm going to ask you to seek that out because I can't provide that information. So that's a whole other thing. Like we have to know what we need to know, but we have to know that we can't always express what we know.
So I've heard it put, we need to know the source of the source. So
Mm-hmm.
know the source to where you go. We cannot be the source of the information. And it's not passing the buck. It's not doing anything, but God forbid we give the wrong information or the wrong
Right.
person. No, be the source of the source. Make sure, I say to somebody, go to town hall and look this up. The source of the source is how I like to put it. But yeah, absolutely. So somebody new to the business or somebody that wants a reboot, just know the towns around what the stats are. I mean, even just MLS data that's, right now in my town, there's only 3 properties on the market. So if
Right.
somebody says, hey, how's the market going? Well, you know what? We only had, 65 sales this year so far, about 10 are under agreement. They're due to close around January. Maybe it's come to the end of the year. And then we only have 3 houses on the market right now. I mean, that is
You
really
should
good
wake up
information to
every
have.
morning and know how many houses are on the market. I think I have 21 right now. That you have to walk around with that number all the time. That is like really important data to know cold. And I have he's now my boss, Anthony Lamacchia, who owns the company that I now work for. He takes it up to the highest level. I'm operating at my local level, but he always talks about, what are our state stats? How many
Mhm.
houses, how many units are on the market in the state of Massachusetts? And I find it fascinating that that's the way his mind works versus my mind works much more local. But it tells you who his end user is and who my end user is.
Right.
But yeah, those are really important things to know. We have to know, what are the hot topics coming out of your town meeting? What are there citizens petitions that you should know about? What's on the ballot? Who are your select board? Like, how you should know every person in a leadership position within your community. And you should make it a point to know that and to know them. I think that's really important, really important.
It is. It is. And until I got involved in the last couple of years in that capacity, which I'm very honored to be serving in that capacity, basically we call it advisory, but it's finance committee. It's just essentially an
That's a
oversight
big
committee
deal.
to kind of say where our town's going. There's no like quote unquote power there to pass laws or anything like that, but it's just more, an oversight, which is fascinating. But yeah, I mean, just to get to know people. And I've always felt, getting started out, I remember my mentor saying, just go to the town, figure out the information, and they're happy to help you. And they really are, for the most part. The towns are happy to
100%.
help somebody. Like, what's a tax betterment? Is there a betterment on the property? And having the due diligence. I have a whole due diligence package that I follow. Not to be sitting there trying to find problems, but just to have all the answers to the questions before they're asked. So that's something really to learn that you don't learn in the 40-hour class, or I would
Oh,
submit even a 100-hour class that they have that can
it's
Florida.
you don't know what you don't know, and I literally learn something new every single day in our business. Or you forget. We sit through these, licensing tests, and we know that we need to know like certain vocabulary. When was the last time you needed to know anything about the dominant
Riparian, everything's
riparian
on there.
rights? Um,
Well, riparian, we don't have to deal with that, but it's interesting going down to the Cape. You have to learn about that.
Absolutely.
Accretion.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, accretion. Oh my gosh, that actually is a trigger alert for me because I just could never quite get that right. Yeah, I mean it's really the dominant and the subservient in an easement situation. I actually have that in a listing that I have right now, and my client, interestingly enough, is an attorney for a title firm in the state of
Oh, wow.
Massachusetts. So talk about learning from someone who teaches it. He's like, yeah, this dominant and that's the subservient. I'm like, wow, I remember that from real estate school, 100 years ago. But yeah, I mean, going back to like the relationships, you have to be willing to learn new stuff every day, all day, and be curious about where the information's coming from. And okay, so here's my rant. I know social media is a really important thing for us, much to my chagrin, because as much as I appreciate it and learn from it, I think that there is a lot of misinformation.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no arbiter of truth on social media. It is what it is, which I think the next generation really appreciates that, and that's why they have embraced it as, a thing. But what I would say is, don't trust everything that you hear on social media, on the, the town Facebook page. It's like it's a cesspool of misinformation. Like if you start to read about, MBTA zoning, read the comments because they're interesting, but go talk to your town planner and say, what's going on here? Like, and they'll give you resources that you can read that are factual, that will really get you the information you need. So know the source of the source. I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. Or be the source of the source, right? So
Yeah.
know it and be it. So just be the source of the source. So that leads me to marketing. Okay. So obviously you have to have the education, and it's really important to have the data and be professional to know the data in how you're serving your community and in the real estate side of business too. What have you done with marketing? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
So is this true confessions? Because I have a true confession.
Yeah, no, it's going to be true. I have a lot of confessing to do. So you go first. Well, I'll give you a couple of Hail Marys afterwards. I'll just even tell you what your penance is.
Okay. So I hope that there are a handful of people who listen to this podcast that take this away. I have made a ton of mistakes in my career. And I would say the single most important thing that I didn't do was start a CRM from day one of my career.
Yeah, I know. That's mine too. That's mine too. And can you imagine? And some of it's just so, we had Excel back then, or was it Lotus? Oh my God. We had, that has been my biggest regret, is not having refined database that even just my current and past clients, customers, and I'm pretending this year that I'm new in the business.
Good.
And doing it again. So that's been yours too.
That's great.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you, having gone from, a boutique company that I owned for, 10 years to recently merging with a much, much larger company. That's one of, Anthony Lamaki is known for his Salesforce CRM that he developed, he designed. He's a master at CRM and how it benefits your business. And how many years into my career, 30 plus, I'm learning it all over again. And I'm trying to not look backwards. I'm just trying to look forward, because I can't reinvent the wheel. By the way, I do have an Excel spreadsheet that's about 9 or 10 years old with data on it. So I'm ahead that way. And that wasn't me that did it. That was my husband, who was also my business partner, that did it because he was doing the back end, all the closing. So he would gather that information. So I kind of have it. But I think a CRM that taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, you haven't talked to Nora Lynch in 6 months." It's just a reminder. Stay in touch with your sphere and treat them well and shower them with information and do it sincerely and genuinely. But that is my biggest absolute epic fail, is not having a good database from day one.
All right, it's so funny because we have not talked about this ahead of time. This is a real coffee conversation.
So you feel the same way, Nora? Yeah,
no, I really do. And it actually makes me get a little upset stomach about the whole thing, because, it's all, so this is how I feel sometimes though. And maybe, so I grew up, my dad was a doctor. Okay. So he was internal medicine person, but I look at sometimes our job as we're an OBGYN, like delivering a baby.
Okay.
I'll go with that. We are part of the process of being the OBGYN all the way up to delivering the baby. Okay. So you're pregnant and you have to follow up with your doctor and all these follow-up things. And then by the time you're done with the process, you have this, hopefully wonderful, beautiful human being that gets delivered. So do you really hear from your OBGYN after that? You just want the healthy delivery. And I've not wanted to be in your face person. I mean, even though I do love being around people, don't want my face up, on the sign.
Me too.
Or anything like that.
Me too.
People have their own, what they feel comfortable with, no judgment. But for me, it was always just, I kind of don't want to be in people's face. So I kind of think, listen, I'm a great OBGYN for delivering your house, and I know what I'm doing and whatnot. And I also tell people, when they say, "Oh my gosh, you did a great job," I said, nope. I'm only as good as the seller or the buyer who's willing to listen to my advice. 'Cause you don't
Amen.
have to listen to my advice. But if you're willing to, based on all the experience, because it's not just my experience, I'm not selling 50 homes a year, but being a manager, being involved in professional standards, communication with you, people will call and say, oh, I've got this issue. So you hear a lot of war stories, so to speak, good and bad. So I always kind of thought, well, I don't want to keep bothering them. They have a lot, like sometimes they'll say, oh, we have like Nora, we miss you. We miss talking to you, or we're having Nora withdrawal symptoms. I'm like, it's totally normal.
Yep.
You'll get over it. Because I don't want
Right.
to be in people's face. I don't want to be a pain in the neck, or
I know.
kind of schmaltzy or salesy.
But guess what? And this is where I've completely gone wrong. I will completely admit that it was a huge mistake, and we hope that people learn from what we're saying. I think our clients want to hear from us. I think that housing and real estate is just it. People love it. They eat it up. So even if you decide to take the approach of, I'm going to send out a newsletter quarterly, like to my database, like just stick with the lane that you're most comfortable with and just do it. So your newsletter doesn't have to say one thing about you. It doesn't have to have your picture on, it doesn't have to, but it's information that you're sharing. One of the things that I think I do really well, and I have learned over the course of 7 years to do this really well, is we have a client partner appreciation event every year. And we go big or go home. Like we do it really nice. And I have found that the benefit to that is not only keeping, being able to thank my sphere for being, having given me business, but the business that happens from that party, people who meet people who meet people. I cannot tell you how many relationships people have said, oh, I met them at your Christmas party. Which to them it's their Christmas party because we do it in December. To me, it's our client appreciation party. But that is really, really one of my like magical things that has received great value. Is it expensive? Absolutely. Does it take a lot of time to plan? Absolutely. Does it always, is the weather always perfect? No. But anyway, I think the point is having either special events or some way of showing gratitude. The other thing that we used to do, and we gave this up because it just was so hard to do, but here was a great idea. My husband and I would go to Lowe's or Home Depot the day after Thanksgiving, where no matter what year it is, they have poinsettias for $1.
Oh, wow.
And it's like a doorbuster, like 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And we would go in, and we did this for years, and we would buy 200 poinsettias, load them in the back of our car, and then we would deliver them during that weekend. So that Thanksgiving weekend, we would go house to house to house, and we wouldn't spend a lot of time. We wouldn't even, like, sometimes if, it was the temperature was right, we would just leave them at the front door, and I would text them and say, hey, there's a gift for you at the front door. That was really hard to do. It was a lot of physical labor, like actually getting the plants into our office and then loading them back in the car. But it was something that I felt good about. And I felt like, so those are the kind of things that I think are important to have, do it your way, do that May Day baskets, I don't know, 4th of July barbecue, like figure out who your people are and bring them the value that they need to be brought to be recognized as your boots on the ground sales force.
Right. And I think that party is amazing. And when you think about it, I used to do these beautiful gingerbread houses from the gingerbread company.
You did.
And, they got to be a little overwhelming. And quite honestly, like for $50 a pop, and then like, when do you cut it off? Do you do it just for the people that bought a house the last year or two? And then they don't get it again. Then they feel like, oh no. And then, because it just gets to be, and how many can you order and all that. And then the delivery part is really tough.
It's hard.
Yeah. So, because I would have to hand deliver them and everything else, but you're inspiring me for a party.
Well, there's a scale of difference, Nora. I'm paying $1 for a poinsettia and you're paying $50 for a gingerbread house. But I'm telling you, like, the impact of both of those.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like that complicated. I guess I had a lot of time back then. I don't have the same amount of time. And
right.
You just got to figure out what you're really good at. And whatever it is, do it for the right reasons. I've observed people over the years where, they're all about giving, but they're doing it with the loudest voice possible. And I just can't, that's just not me. I would rather hand out $100 bills on the street corner in Walmart and do it. This is just me, and this is probably not the best advice. I would rather do it anonymously rather than put it on a Facebook post. Like, that does not feel right to me. And that's probably my biasness, and it's probably a big mistake, and I'm giving you bad advice.
No. Well, what do you mean? Just by
like, let's pretend I was going to have, I don't know, a canned good drive at my office. I think those are amazing. And I think it's just a really, really good thing. Where I have a problem is when it's plastered all over social media. And I know that that's the wrong thing to say, because you have to be out there showing people what you're doing. But it feels disingenuous to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's my hang up. I
do. I just post it, though. So I know you're not talking about me. I'm sure you're not.
I'm not. Totally not.
But
I'm not actually talking about anybody specifically.
Well, I liked giving back, and I wanted to let people know where part of, where they're paying us commissions. Okay.
Right.
Really, it's to our companies that we work for, but, we get that. And that I am giving back. And so I picked an organization, the Realtors Relief Fund, that goes, it's a part of and some people say, oh, is it for realtors? No, I wish it had a different name, because it feels, words mean things. So it sounds like we're relieving realtors only, but no, it's for anybody. It's not for realtors, for disasters and helping out people that lose their homes and need housing during disaster time and funds. So I did post that because I thought that was on brand, so to speak, without being marketing. But I think people need to have a better understanding of that organization, and that's what we're giving our money to. But yeah, I don't like going out there saying I'm doing this, this, and this. Again, I tend to be more private. I mean, even though you're saying I'm outgoing, I am actually more of a private person. Like, even doing this is out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Oh, me too. Are you kidding? Like, I don't know who's going to be seeing this, but yeah, you're right. Like, it might appear that we're completely comfortable doing this, but knowing that you're out there and anybody can see you and judge you and maybe judge the words that you use or the ideas that you have to be out there and be willing to accept that as, we're public figures. And as public figures, I have a certain expectation for myself to uphold myself in a certain way. And I am private. You're private. But I also think I'm private because I give a lot. And so when I need to be private, I need that to be just like I've struggled with Facebook, like posting, pictures of my family. Like, I've done it many, many, many times. Like, go check my Facebook page. But I don't always love doing it because of two reasons. One, my family unit is really private to me. Like, that's my thing. And secondly, I had a friend say to me recently, this is really interesting. She said, you have such a big family and I know how much you love them. She said, but I see your pictures and they totally make me sad. And I said, why? I thought it was reflecting on me and it was her. She said, I don't have that. And you're so lucky you have that. And that affected me because I thought, does she think I'm bragging when I'm posting pictures of my family? But it wasn't that. It was more, she doesn't have a family and she wants a family and she wants that community connection and she doesn't have it. And so by seeing, kind of what my holidays look like, I was making her feel bad and that made me feel bad. So it gave me pause. So
I know that's I mean, I'm very blessed too. My mother-in-law, who's 91,
who's amazing, by the way.
And she says that about in her community. We have Jim is down there a lot, my husband. And she's like, I don't want to brag about, because her daughter now is down there in the area in Florida. And then Jim is down there a lot. So she has dinner on Sundays with Susie and Jim. And then she'll have, Jim will come over a couple days a week and take her out for dinner, have dinner there at the house. And she's like, and then the grandchildren come and visit. And so she says, to her friend, she doesn't want to brag. So she doesn't really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like your cup is running over with blessings, and there are so many people that might not have those blessings. So how do you walk the path of, showing that you're so blessed, but not taking it in stride? Like,
Yeah.
you're
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just a little bit. I
no.
guess it's just like, that's a little bit of humility or being humble, but also being, people do want to know. I mean, I love seeing your pictures.
I love seeing other people's pictures. In fact, there was a period where I went completely dark on Facebook.
I did kind of too over the pandemic.
Oh, that's interesting. I was pretty active in the pandemic. There was some local stuff that occurred a couple of years ago in my town where I was like, you know what, I'm done. And I took a big step back. And then I was hearing from people here and there, like, gosh, like, I know you have a granddaughter. I haven't really seen a picture. Or, hey, I know you went on a trip to Europe. Like, where'd you go? Like those kind of things. And then I realized, I need to just get over myself and just do me. So I'm kind of going back to a little bit of like, maybe not everyday posting, but every month or something, I'll update a post. I don't know. I'm not formulaic about it, but I'm trying to be out there a little more because I know we
still have this discussion to continue about marketing. Because I mean, we only talked about what we would do differently.
Right.
And that is, well, there's a lot of things I do differently, but is definitely really babying or really codifying. I'm just like really nurturing, I should say, our database.
Oh,
and
God.
One of my
failure.
friends, a very good friend of mine and I'm still a very good friend to this day, from high school. And she said her dad said, this checkbook should be like your best. And she's in the same business as her father. This checkbook should be like your best friend. You take care of it. You know everything about it. Anyway, it was really, really interesting. I've always thought about that. That should be like our big database.
So I had an experience a number of years back where I had a client who was a very, very well-known surgeon at a local hospital. Everybody knows this guy. And I was honored that he chose me to list his house, and he was giving me some information on a mortgage broker that he's done many refis with. And he said, Maribeth, this guy is amazing. Do you know he sends me a birthday card every single year? It hit me like, okay, this famous surgeon thinks that this guy every year on March 1st is writing him a birthday card. He had no idea that it was just, a plug and play situation, but that was really meaningful to him. And that stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, you know what? That guy deserves an A+. He has a database. He's working it. He's sending out his birthday cards. He's sending out his anniversary cards. Like, that's good business. And you know what? I have not done myself any service by not representing or not taking care of my database.
Yeah, and I think
really
some people
important.
think that we've forgotten about them, which we really haven't. Like I said, I just thought, call me when you have your next baby.
Exactly. I'm here. I'm still delivering babies.
I'm still delivering babies, and I'm leaving you alone because I don't want to be that person. Right.
Right.
Then, then like what happens when they have another baby to deliver? Guess what? When you didn't get that phone call, I mean, listen, I think we've all been through it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? I thought it was great. And they did too at the time, but maybe it's because I didn't show them that love, which I've always had. Or maybe someone, it's just, you can't overthink it, but it's definitely a painful lesson in this business.
And who has not had that lesson where you go, shame on me. I lost that business because I didn't do my job.
Our job for ourselves, of marketing ourselves.
That's it.
So a final thing, because I know we have to wrap it up, and we're going to go to, you know what, I'm not going to call these part ones, part twos. We might just go to episode 3 with Maribeth again.
That sounds good.
What database do you use? Because I also want to give people, I think it's good for us to give people the actual tools of the trade.
Yeah.
I don't mind sharing. So and I'm starting it up. I did a constant contact a long time ago, and that's the worst. And my confession too is spending, $80, $100 a month on something I'm not even using. Oh. And you multiply that times 12 months, and you multiply that times 5 or 6 years, and it's just it's awesome.
It's huge.
I don't want big money, at least for me. And so I did constant contact for a little while, and then I have like 2 sites I'm dealing with now, like Kajabi based site, which is going to have Kajabi based email. What do you use for your email? uh, distribution.
Marketing?
Yes.
So, True Confessions, I just, 60 days ago merged with Lamaki Realty. They have an unbelievably hearty suite of products to do all of your newsletters, postcards, database management. And frankly, we're still in the introduction phase of it. So I can't tell you the exact, I will once I figure out which one I'm using. But Kajabi they use for their training. You go onto a Kajabi app and all their training is recorded in there. I know that. They use Real Scout for like MLS updates with like a prettier picture. So if you wanted to help you find a house and you wanted updates from MLS, they use a product called Real Scout, which just emails you updates just in a prettier format than MLS. But I mean, I'm again guilty of MailChimp.
We're going to do this together. We're going to deal with our database together. I mean,
you know what?
You can have the database, but you've got to use it. It's kind of like, what you have to do to lose weight, but then you actually have to implement it, right? So we can know what we need to do, but then how do you change it? You actually have to take action.
You have to take action.
I am going to leave everybody with that.
I love that. I think we could talk about that a lot more.
It's one of the success principles that I have learned. Take action, action, action. Sometimes it's not going to be right, but next time I will let you know what I'm doing with my snail mail database marketing and then also email. So the snail mail is paper, things you can touch, which I think has never really gone away. It's just expensive to do, but I think it's well worth it in, nurturing your clients and future customers and clients and getting good information out there, not just like a pretty picture or not a recipe card. Don't get me started on recipe cards.
Remember those? Oh my gosh.
They're still kind of out there, but that's not.
They are?
Yeah, I've seen them, but I think it's important to have like data, like market data is pertinent to them. So.
Yep, absolutely.
We could just talk like
this is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and everybody, thanks for listening, and onward and upward. And you're going to learn from our,
our mistakes,
and also our big wins, and hopefully you'll get something out of this. So great. Thanks, Maribeth. Have a great day.
Thanks, Nora. You too. Bye-bye.